Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is all about importing data from other sources. The title is Organize, Import, Export, and Cleanse Data Sets. That sounds a little weird. As always, let's go through the chapter learning objectives. So go to page 469 in your textbook. It says, understand the importance of external data sets. Okay. Understand and import XML data. Ooh, cool. Connect to an Access database, clean imported data, use flash fill. We'll talk about it a bit. Separate data using text functions and wizards, and then clean date-related data. Okay, so before we even get started, let's talk kind of philosophically about what we mean by, database and data set, all these strange terms that keep throwing at us. So, data is everywhere. You've probably even heard the term big data, where people are collecting tons and tons of information on us. And when it comes time to doing kind of manipulation on the data, a lot of people pull sample data into Microsoft Excel to be able to play with it. There's a lot of ways you can do that. I mean, in the strictest sense, you could quite literally copy and paste data into do a random sample or whatever from the database and copy and paste. That's what we did in a previous chapter when we're talking about setting up data tables where, they had a golf spa scenario and they just copied data and pasted it. Well, we're going to do a live connection to data now. So you can configure Microsoft Excel to go out and make a live connection to the database so that when the database changes, the data over here changes. Ooh, no, that's not at all like we did before, where it was like an archive copy. In their world, an external data source is anything that's external to Microsoft Excel. Kind of a strange term. Still could be on your computer. So external doesn't mean not here, it just means not Excel. There's a quick reference on page 470 talking about the common sources of where you could probably get data into Microsoft Excel. I mean, list is not exclusive, but it's a pretty good list. They talk about, getting from Microsoft Access and then an HTML file. We're going to do some of those. We're going to do a live connection to a database. Pretty cool. Some text files. You've probably heard of comma separated value, a CSV file. And in fact, if you save a CSV file, a text file as a CSV extension, it shows up, with the icon as being an Excel spreadsheet. That's pretty doggone cool. And there's XML and text and some old DBase and SQL Server and all sorts of other connections. Okay. So the first one we're going to do, if we go to page 470, they talk about doing what's called a web query. Now, don't get the word sound if this was a database class and I said something about a query, that's like one of those, select, first name from employees where ID is greater than 12. That's a query. That's not what they mean here. It probably should be called something like, I don't know, web extract or something. So we're not actually doing a query per se, but it is a way to get data into Excel. So lots of lots of websites actually have like a data table inside them. And so there's a couple of lists out there. So I'm going to use the one in the book here. I'm just going to grab this URL. And first I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the URL to show you what's actually in there before we try to do something from inside Microsoft Excel. Okay, so I'm going to hit the button here. And it basically comes up and says, what would you like? And I say, I don't know, I'll take this first one. Well, it should be fairly obvious that this is a table, right? And if you had taken the course, the 315 course on how to do web stuff, you can tell there's actually an HTML thing, a construct called a table. And that's what this is. And so Microsoft Excel can look at this HTML and go, I see a table here. Would you like me to just copy all that information from the table and put it in? Now, you could do this, okay? You could light this thing up like this and do copy. All right, and then you could go in and, all the rest of the stuff, but there's a much easier way. Okay, So now that you've seen what it looks like, I'm going to go to Microsoft Excel, and we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to make Excel go to the web page. That's right. So I go here to Data, and one of the things is From Web. So I'm going to click that, and then it says, give me the URL. I happen to still have it in my paste buffer, so I'm just going to... I don't have it in my paste buffer. Okay, I do now. Now, when I hit the Go button, this is actually sort of like a miniature version of Internet Explorer running inside a window inside Microsoft Excel. I know it's a little weird. Okay. Now, it hasn't really detected any tables on this first page. If it had, that'd be this little yellow thing. So let me click here, and it goes, aha! I have detected that there's a table here. Cool! So I click on this, and then I say import, and it says, where would you like this? That's fine and dandy with me. Let her rip, and give it a couple seconds, and poof, presto changeo, I have now copied and pasted all that information into my Excel spreadsheet. Now, you might think, so what happens if somebody changes the spreadsheet? Is it gonna change here? Well, not live. Okay, it's not gonna be periodically checking back to the web page every few minutes to see if any change is taking place. But yes, there actually is what's called a connection. So there's a little connection button. Let's take a peek at that. So it says, you've got a connection. Let's look at the properties. And it says, you know, would you like me to go out and redo this periodically? Yes, I can go in there and say, once an hour, I want you to go in there and do this. What most people do is either have it refresh when you first open the file. That makes sense, because if it stays dormant for days, the first time you open it, that would be a good one to. So when it opens up, it says, hang on a second, and goes and refreshes the data and puts it in there. That's a good option. Okay, I'm going to leave this one alone. There is a way you can manually do that, and that's just with this refresh all. And if you hit the little button, it'll actually go and find all the sources and then repopulate them. Isn't that pretty cool? Okay. So by default, the refresh is not automatic. The refresh all pretty works, and this refresh, you can actually do a refresh from inside this guy. If you wanted to just refresh one of them, like you had, because we're going to have more than one connection here after a while. So, refresh all works pretty decent. A little down arrow here where you can pick which ones you want to refresh. Okay, now all is not wonderful in the web world. Let me give you an example. In fact, they talk about they have an example. I'm just going to go to another sheet here someplace. They showed an example in the book they talk about with Microsoft Money. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the Microsoft Money, and I'm going to pick some stuff in here. And I'm going to go ahead and just stretch this guy out a little bit to show you a little bit more about just like this was Internet Explorer. So here's a bunch of stocks, and it looks like a table, doesn't it? It's got rows and columns, right? But I didn't get the little yellow arrow. Why? Because in reality, it's not really a table. Websites have become more sophisticated. So things that look like tables, you might think, ooh, that's a table. I'm going to go into Microsoft Excel and pull that down. And then you go through all this procedure, and you finally get there and you go, well, dang, it ain't a table after all. Okay, so all is not perfect in the world. Now, there are some other good ones I'm going to show you. Here's one from the census data where you get too much data. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here we go. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not worried about these little goofy errors. I'm just going to... Okay, so here's census data. Okay, now... Okay, it has detected that, yes, this is indeed a table. Well, the problem is that is a column right there. It doesn't look like it, but it is. So that first column is this information gang. Second column is really the one that I want. And so I really don't have a way to go in there and tell it I only want like column 3 and column 4 and column 5. can't do that. So I'll go ahead and do this, and it'll fetch that information. And then I go, what the heck is that? I got the 3 columns that I really wanted, but I also got that first column, which was that little information ball. So it's not perfect. You know, go ahead and do the import, pull it down, and then just whack the stuff you don't need. I mean, if I don't need that column, fine, I just whack that column. So a lot of web pages have things that look like tables that are not. Often there's a table, but it's got tons of information, and you really can't, when you're doing the import, you really can't tell, oh, but wait, I only want this. You just get the whole thing and just kind of clean it up afterwards. So it's pretty cool. So let me go ahead and save this, because I have 2 connections now, right? In fact, if I go to connections, I should see 2 things, right? This is the connection that went to the first web page. Here's the second one. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close this guy. So I'm going to hit, well, let me just hit close. And so, yes, I'd like to save this. And I'm going to save it in my Chapter 9 section here. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to open this guy up a second time since I've completely closed out. Open this guy up, and it says, warning, data connections have been disabled. And the idea is this. You know, you've built a web page and you're connecting to other people's data, which may not be all that trustworthy. I mean, hopefully they are, but come on, give me a break. You know what I'm talking about. You know, I'm connecting to, on a corporate network, to, you know, Bob's little spreadsheet over here, or Sally's little database, or somebody else's web page, and I don't have any control over their data. So this little warning comes up and says, are you sure you want to connect? And if you know where all these sources are, and by the way, there's no real easy way of determining where the sources are other than going to, like here, going to connections and hitting properties and seeing, you know, where all this stuff is. I mean, that's one way of doing it. So, yes, you do have to go in here and say, yes, I would like connections, please. And now you can do that refresh all thing, and it'll work. Okay. They talk about a technique in here where you can save the web query. And I don't find it all that helpful, but whatever. So, for example, if I go into connections and I go to properties and I go to definition, there's a little thing down here. Well, let me slow down. Okay. I go to connections. I hit properties. Then this is about how to refresh and do all that kind of stuff. If I go to definition, the definition is going to have all sorts of other information where you could actually have a real honest-to-God query. So they provide an opportunity for you to edit the query. And we're not going to actually be doing any of that, but that's beside the point. So this is basically showing you the same thing over again. But right here, there's a little doodad that says Save Query. So yes, I'd like to save a query, and I'm going to leave it at the default. Look at the locations it's putting it. It's putting it in my roaming profile, Microsoft Queries. And it's got an IQY extension. So I'll go ahead and do that. Now, you might think, let me just close all this stuff. What on earth did I do? And more appropriately, why did I do it? What is the point of saving a query like that? Well, the idea is perhaps you found a data source that you really like on the web or wherever. You know, the only one we've done so far is web, but just bear with me. This procedure will work for anything. And you think, oh, this is perfect. I need to use this in this Excel spreadsheet and that Excel spreadsheet and that Excel. Oh, no, now it makes sense, doesn't it? Because now I can go in and pull up a saved web query and use it in multiple ones. Okay, so the idea of being able to save a web query is really designed around, I plan on using this in more than one location, so wouldn't it be kind of cool if I saved it someplace I could reuse it without having to go find the URL and drill down to the right spot and do all the rest of the stuff. Cool? Now, clearly if the people change their web page, well then, okay, you're screwed. You have to go back and edit it anyway. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll continue in just a few.